Some people ask me what it felt like to be photographed by Mr. Gordon Parks. And I'd often say, how should I know? I was only 3 years old when he came into my home. It was 1968 when he published a story in Life magazine. We could never imagine, but it was just the beginning of my family's hardships. My name is Richard Troy Fontenelle. I was born December 22nd, 1964. Born in Manhattan, raised in Manhattan.
Take care of that, the window bounce in 41?
Yeah.
So that?
Yeah.
About the faucet.
The faucet?
I'm
a handyman at Columbia University. It's basic plumbing and carpentry work, repairs, basic repairs in apartments. I enjoy my job. I enjoy the people I work with. Talking mother figure, my sister Diane.
Oh, I'm his oldest sister, partially his mother.
Diane took care of me like as if I was, as a matter of fact, I was told that people thought that I was her baby, She was the oldest of all the girls, and she's sweet.
He was like my little baby. When my mother brought him home, I did everything. I fed him, washed, cleaned him, took him out, took him to the park, took him to the playground. He was like my child. I go to my church every Sunday. It's a spiritual-filled church. We go along with the spirit of how you feel. And the Bible says, make a joyful noise unto the Lord. That's what we do. It's just beautiful that you can have God in your life, because God wasn't always in my life, but he's in my life now because of things in my past that made me turn to God.
I started life in 1948 and worked for 23 years on the staff. I was the first black to be hired by the magazine. They sent me to Paris shortly after because I don't think they know what to do with me here in America. I started writing my own articles because suddenly I was doing the civil rights, and I didn't trust anybody to write for me, because I didn't know what they were going to put down. And I said, if I get inside the Muslims or the Black Panthers, Stokely Carmichael, Malcolm X, and all the group, I must write it. During the civil rights activities, I went south to Alabama and places of that sort. When I came back, the managing editor, Philip Coonhart, at Life, asked me why black people were rioting in the inner cities, in big cities. And I told him, I said, well, I could live with a family for a week and show you that. But he said, well, go ahead. Well, that's when I went up to Harlem. And I talked to lots of families, but none of them wanted to do it. Finally, I ran into Miss Fontenelle, Bessie Fontenelle, and I told her what I was after. And she said, well, if it's going to help people, I'll do it. My mother told me that she met him, I think she said it was in the supermarket, 8th Avenue. She had all these kids with her around the shopping cart, and he's like, wow, these are all your kids.
My brother Norman was a very active kid. He got involved in a lot of different things. He was places where you wouldn't even dream he would be. And he met Gordon Parks. I didn't take a camera with me for a week when I went up there. I just got to know the kids. Took them to the corner for a hot dog or a hamburger, and got to know the mother and father. And after about a week, I brought in my camera for the first time. By that time, I was practically in the family, I was like Uncle Gordon.
The apartment was on 123rd Street, 8th Avenue, Harlem, New York. 2 bedrooms, 10 children, not much space.
We did live in a railroad flat apartment, you know, where it goes straight through, where everybody got to pass each other. Overcrowded on the top floor. We didn't have heat, so me and my brother used to have a shake contest of who could dry the diaper the fastest. So we used to, who could make the loudest pop with the diaper. And we used to shake them dry in the kitchen over the oven, you know, so Richard could have a pamper on.
I remember it was a very cold day, and he went to the window with his brother, and they were looking out the window at the snow. And he just said, look at the snow. Look at the snow. I said, yes. Pretty, huh? He said, yeah, pretty. One Thanksgiving, I went up there. They didn't have anything to eat. They didn't have any heat. She had the oven open, and little Kenneth, I think, they were sitting by the oven keeping warm. It was a very sad time, especially around Thanksgiving, you know.
My mother, to tell you the truth, would go hungry before she let the kids go hungry. You know, it's like, if it had to be that way, it's like we wouldn't even feel that part of it, because that's just the type of person she was.
She was a very good woman. She wanted the very best she could for her children, gave them lots of love, as much as she could when she could find time.
I don't remember much about my father at all. Him and my mother used to argue a lot. You know, he drank sometimes, you know, when he'd get off from work. She told me that when he wasn't drunk, he was the sweetest man in the world, but when he drank, he's a totally different person.
Mr. Fontenelle was without a job, and he was beginning to sort of beat up on the children and beat up on her. And the children needed things. They didn't have the proper clothing, didn't have the proper food. They were poverty-stricken, and even if they were prepared to take a job or something, they couldn't get it because they were black. So I can understand the frustration of Mr. Fontenelle, and certainly the frustration of Mrs. Fontenelle. One afternoon, I saw little Norman standing beside a trash can, warming up outside, and I asked him what he was doing out there in tennis shoes and a little windbreaker, and he said his father kicked him out. And I said, what did he kick you out for? He said, oh, I don't know. He said he's just without a job and he gets mad and frustrated. I went up there to see Mrs. Fontenelle, and Mr. Fontenelle had had too many drinks, and she was heating the water up on a big cauldron for clothes, I think. And I asked her if she wanted me to take Norman home, and she said no, she'd get him in. So I left, but the next day when I arrived, she was on the couch crying with little Richard under her arm. I took a shot and put the camera back in my pocket, and I asked her what was trouble. She said she sent Norman Sr. to the hospital. I said, sent him to the hospital for what? She said, oh, after you left, he beat up on me, and I pushed this scalding water on him. So I took little Norman to the hospital. He didn't recognize his father because he was so badly burned. When I published the story, there was a very strong reaction. People sent money. I got Life magazine to give me enough money, along with the money that came in from outside, and bought them a home over on Long Island. It was a nice little home, had grass, bought all new furniture, new icebox. Kids were close to a nice school.
She was starting a garden in the house, and my brother was like, they was out there trying to help with the garden, and they had furnished the whole apartment, you know, with everything. And when I used to go by there, the big dining room where we ate, everybody sat around and they ate at the same time. It was like a different change in our lives where We didn't have that coming up as kids.
One of the things I really, really remember is the tragedy in that house. I was 3 years old when that fire happened. I still remember that.
My brother Norman, because I lived a few blocks away. About 5 o'clock in the morning, I didn't go to work that day because I was working at New York Telephone Company then. And I heard a banging at the door. And I went downstairs and I said, "What's wrong with you?" He said, "The house burned down and Daddy is dead." So he was always a practical joker like that. So I didn't believe him. I said, "Boy, don't be playing with me this time in the morning." He said, "No, for real." So I looked down and he didn't have on any shoes. And that's what I believed in.
I remember the whole right side of the house, like just flames just coming out, and I could feel the heat, and smell smoke, and everyone was panicking up there. My brother jumped down. One of my brothers jumped down, and everyone else had to jump, and he was like catching them. It was my brother, Gerald. Philip, he's not alive anymore either, but he was the one that just got us out.
He rescued everybody out of the house. His nightmares started because he went back after he got Richard out. They realized they didn't have Kenneth, and he couldn't go back to get him because of the intenseness of the heat.
And it was then too late to get him out of the room. The whole room was on fire.
He was a quiet kid. He was real, real quiet. He liked to read. He used to always, I think in the magazine you would see him doing work. He always loved that, but see, unfortunately, we didn't get to see him grow because he was 9 years old when he died in the fire. There was a saying it was a racial thing because they didn't really want my mother in the neighborhood with all those children.
Mr. Fontenelle came home one night and lit a cigarette and dropped it in the sofa, forgot about it, and the house burned down. He died in the fire. Little Kenneth died in the fire.
I was told that it was like a cocktail or something thrown through the back window. And my father, I guess, he was trying to come upstairs and save the kids, whatever, but they found him on the steps, on the way up the steps. They found him on the steps, burnt to a crisp. There's no flesh, just bones.
Ms. Fontenelle wanted to move back to Harlem. She said, I don't want to stay here anymore. But I said, they'll have the house rebuilt for you. She said, no. She wanted to go back to Harlem. So that's where she went.
After that fire, my family just went to pieces. That's the part. You know what I'm saying? That it was a gift when that house was given, and then the hurt was when it was taken away. And everybody just didn't care no more.
I went up to see her one Christmas Eve. I asked her where all the other kids were. She said they're on the street. She hadn't seen them for weeks, the girls. And she was with little Richard, and they were alone. And I didn't have the heart to say Merry Christmas to her. But as I left, she said Merry Christmas to me. And I said, well, I hope you have a better New Year. She said, I hope so.
Now, my brother Gerald, he was the muscle guy in the family. You know, he was the one that, if you had a beef with somebody, he'd take care of it for you.
He got into the drug game, which was earlier in his life, and eventually he started using them himself. That's how he passed away.
We say he was killed. He was like 20, maybe about 20, yeah, about 20 years old.
This is my sister Roseanne. She had she used to take me and my sister Ellen to the park.
She was a young lady that had a nice built body, and that was her world. Her world was like in the streets.
She was 27 years old when she passed away.
My older brother, Harry, he was a criminal. In other words, He stayed most likely in institutions down south. Actually, when he came, I got a lot of friends because he was a handsome guy. He was a Romeo.
I don't know where he is. I don't know if he's dead or alive. I don't know if he's in prison somewhere. I don't know. No one knows. And this has been a question for a few years because he's been missing for better than 3.5 years. No one's heard one word from Harry at all.
Letty was the one, you couldn't tell her nothing. She knew everything. She did try to make a good life for herself. She got a job, and she called me, Diane, I got a job, I'm working. I said, well, that's good. You need to keep it. She said, well, I'm gonna try. And she did try, but, you know, I guess she was weak, and she went back on the streets too.
Letty was like 29 or 30 at that time.
She died of the virus. Ellen, that's the baby girl.
Me and her, we did a lot of things together. She was like an athlete. She did a lot of running. She won a lot of trophies in school.
I can remember that she was ashamed. Whenever she saw me on the street, she would go across on the other side of the street. And I used to tell her, I'm not ashamed of you, so why should you be ashamed? Because you looking like you look or you on drugs like you are, you still my sister, regardless. She too died of the virus.
Ellen was 27 when she passed.
Norman was an overactive child when he was little. So active that he just was a menace. The neighbor's cat, he dissected it. Back then, the schools could do what they wanted with you. It was, if he was an overactive child, he wasn't crazy. But they had said he had a mental problem. And my oldest brother, Harry, and I tried to convince my mother that he didn't have a mental problem, that he just needed a little extra attention. But they put him in a mental institution called Rockland State. I can remember one year we didn't have a Christmas tree. And we didn't have toys. And out of nowhere, Norman came in with a tree. It was like, it wasn't a new tree. But he said, we can't have no Christmas without a tree. So now we didn't have no decoration. We made decorations with newspaper and wrapped some boxes, and like we had toys under it. And we still had a Christmas. But it was like the sad times, Norman.
I called up Richard one day to find out about Norman Jr., and Richard told me that he was dead, that he had died, I think up in Connecticut someplace, that he didn't know why he died or how he died.
My sister Ram, who I named my daughter after.
She also was into drinking and drugs and just went downhill with it. She developed diabetes. She stayed at a friend's house one night, and her friend had to come and tell us that Rael was at her house, and Rael, she couldn't wake her up. That's all she told us. Can't wake her up. She won't wake up. So I went there, and I knew when I touched her, she was like cold, and I knew she was dead. I knew it. My last words to her was, I loved her. I whispered in her ear and I kissed her. Boy, I tell you.
They all wanted love. We all wanted love. I didn't want to talk about it, but I too did end up on drugs myself. I don't know, I think because I buried myself, because I didn't really have my family, and I love them, and I wanted us to be a family.
The year that my sister Ellen and my mother and my sister Letty, that year that they died, all of them died in the same year. My mother was sick. She was suffering from cancer. She went so fast. I couldn't even bring tears in my eyes. I just couldn't believe that she was gone. One day I sat down, I took a deep breath, and it just all came out. I had to sit down and just looks like, wow, everybody's just gone.
Richard's brothers and sisters' lives were so dramatic until their death. I think it helped him more than scarred him, because it always gave him the ambition to want to be better and do more. And not, I would say, disappoint his mother, because him and his mother had a very loving and very close relationship. He was like a mama's boy.
Yes, we were very close, and most of the other kids in the family used to always say I was spoiled, because, you know, I was always under her and whatever. You know, she was my mother. What could I do? She was a sweet lady, and she was always good to me.
Miss Fontenelle always talked to me about Richard. She felt that Richard was really going to amount to something. She said, of all my children, he's going to be the one to do it. She said, he doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, and he's a good boy, and he thinks right. She said, anything happens to me, I hope you look in on him now and then.
He's a really nice man. He's like a father to me. You know, if I need someone to talk to, he always tells me, just call me up. You have a problem, anything, call me up. I'm here. Little Richard turns out to be exactly what she thought he was going to be. He's a nice young man. He wants to be a composer. He has a family of 3, nice wife. And I hope that Richard will be successful as a composer. I think that's in his mind. I do composing. I produce. I mix. I sit here for hours and hours making up samples for the songs.
And after all the things I did for you and all your kids, it didn't mean a damn thing anyway. Oh,
baby, I just wanna love you, take you places you've never been, and waiting for my door.
It was like 1 out of 10 that he looked at everybody's life and didn't want his life like that.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
And I'm very proud of that. I wish there could have been me at that time, but I'm proud of myself now. I stopped at 46 years old. And from 46 to now, I have not picked up a cigarette or drink. I've turned my life over to God. You know how they say, be careful what you ask for, or you just might get it? Well, that's where I put God in. Because I suffer with arthritis, I asked for a job that I could sit down, answer telephone, and that's the job I got. Life itself now is good to me.
oh, look at this.
That's
Remember
Ellen.
Ellen?
Yeah.
People used to think he was mine. Because, I don't know, I think Mama and I had so many things going on with each other till he came out looking just like me. So everybody thought he was my son.
Who's that?
That's
another
a book by Gordon Parks. Look,
Oh, who's
there you
this?
go. Look at that. Who is that right there? Can you recognize that face? Don't it look something like you?
That's me.
No, it's not you, but doesn't it look like
Who
you?
does it look like?
Daddy's
That's
That's
Daddy.
Daddy, your daddy. Look at it good.
And this is your grandma, Bessie.
That's our
That's Daddy's
mother.
mommy.
But she died.
Yeah.
We don't know what that is. Who's that?
Let's look at this.
You okay?
Why are you crying?
I just get emotional sometimes. I look at my mother's last child and her firstborn girl living to be able to say that we did survive.
I understand my brothers and sisters are here for me, and they're here for you too. But change your diapers and make you feel clean. Will make you happy, will even make you scream. You got me here, and I've got you too. No need to fear that you're here without me, 'cause I'm here for you, Daddy. You're here for me, let us be. Nah, let